Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't want to believe this, but there are people leaving from blue states to red states in droves. It's backed up by data. Could you believe it? It is backed up by data. All you need to do is look at the U-Haul out migration data and you could find your answer. However, there are some naysayers here that have DM'd me, have made comments, have emailed me trying to contest what I've been saying for pretty much the last year and a half. Well, now there are some news sources that are starting to catch on, and they are starting to compile this data into videos. One of our subscribers actually sent me this video, and I haven't done this in a long time. So if you guys subscribe to the channel, make sure you send me information, even if I don't cover it, even if I don't respond back. I do get a lot of messages, but I only watched the first maybe 30 to 60 seconds of this video. So I want to show you what is actually happening inside of these blue cesspools.
Well, maybe you've heard of something called the blue state exodus. More Americans are moving out of politically liberal states and taking up residence in conservative ones. CBN chief political analyst David Brody explains why it's happening and what it means for America's political and economic future.
America has covered a lot of ground over its short history, and it's on the move again. This time, the shift is political and geographical, with people leaving blue states and heading straight for red ones.
This is the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the United States. We've never seen anything like this.
It is.
Economist Stephen Moore sums it up pretty well. Billions of dollars shifting as millions pack up in droves. The latest census data shows a clear trend. California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and others like them are losing people. It's been labeled the blue state exodus. Meanwhile, red states are benefiting and booming, like Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, and Tennessee in the South, and Utah out west. The main drivers behind this great migration center on sky-high housing costs, a mountain of regulations, and yes, tax rates.
If they continue to charge 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% income taxes when you can pay zero income tax in Tennessee and Texas and Florida, that's not working out very well. So progressivism is destroying blue states.
Add to that government mandates for green energy.
You know, here's one metric that I could tell you that, and again, I'm not, you know me, as long as you're not new to the channel, I'm not against green energy. I'm not against trying to preserve the environment, okay? But I am against going broke to get there. And one metric that I've been looking at, this probably holds true across the entire country. So a lot of the things that we invest in Massachusetts to try to reach net zero carbon is obviously to reduce CO2 emissions. But the crazy thing about reducing CO2 emissions is that the way these emissions come down, so does your bank account. That's what's happening. So if you see CO2 emissions coming down and you're getting reports or looking at reports that CO2 emissions are coming down, you could almost bet your bottom dollar that your bank account is draining as well. I also think that when it comes to migration data, I don't think there is a better representation of what is happening inside of red and inside of blue states as of today, other than the fact of policies and politics forcing these people to leave to go to greener pastures. Now, I'm not saying that it could remain this way forever. I am saying that, again, historically, from what we've seen over the last couple of years, many people do not want to deal with the nonsense politics that are happening inside of this state. Furthermore, this guy had mentioned income tax. The funny thing about this is that the majority of people that are leaving these states are around my age group. Of course, I'm at the older end of this age group, but I think it's between 24 or 27 to 44. You got to realize these are people that are getting out of college. These are people that are starting their careers, and these are people that are realizing that their careers can't support either one of two things, which is the cost of living and or their lifestyles. So what they end up doing is they sacrifice one of the two to make ends meet. So inevitably, even if you're making less money in one of these red states, what ends up happening is, yes, on the front end, you're making less money, but those states are collecting less money on the back end. And normally, it's substantial enough where the out-migration data supports my claim, where people are leaving blue states and heading into red states so that they can afford to live their lives. This is happening in Massachusetts. It is happening across the country. And I don't see this slowing down at all. The reason that I don't see this slowing down at all is because all you need to do is look at the movement of the bills within your legislature and see what they are trying to pass in your deep blue states. I will almost guarantee you they are allocating more money towards illegal immigration. They are allocating more money towards green mandates. They are allocating more of your money towards higher taxes in some way, manner, or form. It is what is happening. And now people are leaving. And the reason that you're not seeing houses come on the market as people leave is, again, it's because of the age group. These are people that cannot afford to live here. They can't afford to buy a house in these states, and they are leaving. On top of them leaving, businesses are leaving too. All you have to do is go look at the Warren Report on Massachusetts government website. The Warren Report will show you, I believe it's businesses that may have 50 or more employees, and you could see all of the business that has left Massachusetts since Maura Healey has taken office. If you guys don't realize what is happening, there is absolutely no hope for you. I'm sorry, but there is too much information and there is too much data out here to prove the point.
Many business leaders say that pretty much just doubles power expenses for residents. And it doesn't stop there. Many of these blue states choose unionization over right to work, often making it harder for businesses to operate or even relocate. Meanwhile, states on the other end of the political color spectrum offer low taxes, lighter regulation, school choice expansion, and more conservative social policies. That's a combination many families don't want to pass up.
Of course.
Joel Kotkin is a presidential fellow in urban studies at Chapman University.
People move in part because they don't feel comfortable anymore in where they are. This is very much expressed in the public schools, where not only are they not teaching particularly well, but they're also imposing ideologies on people. And I think that drives some people to red states.
Kotkin says
the one thing I will say about that, and the reason I have to pause this is because I'll forget what the hell I'm going to say. Okay, I want to make a comment about what he said about the schools. We have 2 kids in school, right? We have 2 children that are school age. My son is actually heading into kindergarten this year. And what ends up happening, I don't know if you've noticed this, but guess what happens? It's very easy to manipulate the data in these blue states when you change the way the data is either collected or you change the way the data is ultimately determined. So what I mean by that is this. Let's say, like when I was going to school, for instance, you had grades between A, B, C, D, and F, right? What they do is they expand the definition of what is passing and what is failing. So for instance, if you decide to eliminate the gap between let's say D and F, and you add an E in there or something like that, this is a hypothetical, guess what happens? Now there's an additional letter there that allows for more people to pass. And I'm not trying to say don't help these students out. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. What I am trying to say is when you expand that definition, of what it means to be able to graduate from even just high school, and you make it substantially easier, well, then guess what happens on the front end when people like Chip Lupo from Wallet Hub that doesn't live here, that decides to rate Massachusetts. I mean, for God's sakes, he rated Massachusetts the #1 state to have a child, okay? We all know that may not be the case, right? So these people will get on there, like people like Wallet Hub, and they'll use their advanced methodology and inform the public about, we have the highest ranking schools in Massachusetts. And don't get me wrong, we do have high ranking schools in Massachusetts. But what happens is when you're changing the language, or you're changing the structure on grading students, and more students are graduating because of that internal structure that you did administratively, guess what happens? It's smoke and mirrors is what it is. It's not actually for real. That's what's going on here. And then furthermore, when Wallet Hub posts one of their things about Massachusetts, and by the way, you could check this theory out for yourself. Chip Lupo every single year posts Massachusetts is #1 in this, #1 in this, number one place to start a business, for God's sakes. Like they I don't know if that's true, but I'm sure it was, right? So you post all of these things, then that information, just like when I have like a breaking story, like the courthouse deal, the $2 billion courthouse deal in Springfield, what happens is the news runs with those stories, and then other proxy outlets decide to post the same exact information. And what happens is when somebody like Chip Lupo from Wallet Hub publishes that information, and then these other proxy companies take that at face value and then publish the same exact thing, it makes it look like Massachusetts is doing incredibly well. But the fact remains, Massachusetts is doing incredibly well. They're doing incredibly well for the bottom 5 or 10% and the top 5 or 10%. Everybody in the middle there is the one that is suffering. That is the reality, and that is what's happening here in Massachusetts.
For many Americans, it comes down to a simple cost-benefit decision. What am I paying, and what am I getting in return?
In a state like California, you pay high taxes, but you don't get much for your money. Schools still are pretty bad in much of the state. The roads are in terrible shape. The infrastructure isn't keeping up. So,
does that sound familiar?
People have to make a rational choice.
And it's not just families. A growing number of billionaires, CEOs, and major corporations, looking at the numbers, are choosing states with lower taxes and a more business-friendly climate.
The people who are moving out are the millionaires and billionaires, and they're taking their incomes, their jobs, their businesses with them.
For more than 200 years,
That's right.
The Northeast was...
That's why all of these blue states have enabled this millionaire tax. I think California has one. We have one too. So not only did we rob these people blind while they were here, but now we're robbing them blind as they leave. It's something else, I'll tell you that.
the country's economic engine. New York, Philadelphia, Boston,
There you go.
Baltimore. It was the proverbial pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Not anymore.
For the first time, starting 2 years ago, the Northeast is no longer the dominant economic section of our country. Now the region that's the dominant region is the South.
And this shift could lead to major political consequences. At this rate, the congressional map is expected to see a major reshuffling after the 2030 census. The respected Brennan Center predicts conservative red states will pick up 12 House seats, lost, by the way, by liberal blue states. It also brings seats in the Northeast down from 92 to 81. Southern states would add 19, taking their total to 164 seats. It could also mean a net gain of 10 electoral votes in states won by President Trump in 2024.
The crazy thing about this, when you really think about it, is like, now you start to realize what everybody has been saying over the last couple of years and has been deplatformed of saying it. When you deport people that are very productive, highly productive people within your society, right? Whether it be businesses or whether it be people getting out of college and starting a career, and they go and they head south, they go to greener pastures, literally, and then you're importing a whole bunch of people from a country that couldn't make it work and think that they are going to make it work in the state that they're moving to. And the majority of these people are on different welfare programs. Guess what's going to happen? The people that are remaining in those states are the ones that become disenfranchised the most because they didn't leave. Now they are paying welfare for all of these people that decided to come in. This is the reality of what happened, and I'm sorry to say it, but somebody has to.
This shift means the days are gone when the so-called hillbillies moved to Beverly Hills.
Said California is the place you ought to be, so they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly.
Now it's people are moving from Beverly Hills, California to Arkansas. They're moving to Oklahoma, and they're moving to even the states that once were considered
Texas.
backwater states. That's how embarrassingly counterproductive these policies are in these big blue states.
Add to that how blue states have taken a major ideological turn.
In many of the very deep blue cities, it's really now a race between moderately left-wing progressives and extremely left-wing progressives. And that's not a very good atmosphere for business. It's not a very good atmosphere,
Of course.
For families.
The result is an America continuing to change before our very eyes. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, David. It's interesting when you look at a snapshot of this. New Jersey, my home state, has lost or is losing Samsung to Texas, ExxonMobil to Texas. To go the other coast, California has lost or losing SpaceX, Public Storage, and Chevron to Texas, and also Yamaha to Georgia. And basically, the 10 states with the highest overall tax burden, blue, lowest red. So this will have huge political and economic fallout for this country.
Imagine opening your inbox.
So the other things that I want to talk about, I don't know if I said this because I'm just giving some commentary here, but if you want to tell how brutal it is when it comes to like this net zero stuff and these green mandates, one metric you could also look at is emissions. If your state is working on lowering emissions, those lower emissions are going to result in lower money in your bank account. That's what's going to happen. And I'm not saying I'm against, environmental, saving the planet, this, that, or the other thing, but we can't go broke getting there, right? You know this, that I say this. This is one of my talking points. It's just the reality that you can't implement all of these policies, mandates, and red tape, so on and so forth, and expect people to not leave. And I also think, they were talking about businesses leaving. Listen, I'm all for capitalism and stuff, but super duper late stage capitalism is also kind of problematic because remember, very late stage capitalism caused a lot of people like me, during at least the Biden administration. Things have obviously eased up since Elon ended up buying Twitter, but late stage capitalism is one of the key factors for people getting deplatformed, right? So you have freedom of speech, but you don't necessarily have freedom of consequences. So what ends up happening is these, mega corporations, so on and so forth, that a lot of people end up working for. Well, if they go out on social media and they say something, right? What ends up happening is those companies fire them. Furthermore, even people like me, that, I talk about New England, I talk about politics a little bit here and there, right? I talk about what's going on. Advertisers that are part of this spectrum, even me, I could give you specific examples, but I won't. Specific advertisers will not advertise on political channels because they don't want their brand, and I understand it, okay? They don't want their brand affiliated with somebody that could negatively impact both sides of the political spectrum that may be a consumer of their products. So then what happens is, again, people like me will not that I take on sponsors, because I really don't. Maybe I will in the future. I would like to take on maybe some local sponsors and stuff like that, but I'm not really interested in doing it right now. But the fact remains, the ad revenue that these companies are making, again, ultra late stage capitalism, is determining what people can or can't say, because they won't spend their ad dollars to people or onto people that may be giving some levels of political commentary. And as I said, the same exact thing ends up happening when it comes to speaking out and you work for one of these bigger corporations. If you say something on Twitter or X, if you say something on, Facebook or Instagram or something like that, they look at those posts, even if you're going for a job, and they won't hire you because of what you said. Unless, you're one of Mondani's, comrades there, and you could get to say whatever the hell you want. That some of the stuff that they say is absolutely anti-American, outrageous thinking. You get hired within their administration because that's effectively the only job that you could actually have. So I find it really strange how some people can't, stomach to see this. And believe me, I understand, right? I get it to a point. You want to have some levels of progression. You want to move things forward, but at the same time, you can't tax people to death in order to get there. That's one of the biggest problems that I have. And furthermore, a lot of times what happens is, we're in 2026 here, guys, right? There's so much data and information out there that if you're not supplying some kind of study, like an impact study on whatever it is that you're looking to implement or anything that you're looking to do, and you're doing it, you're kind of firing from the hip. You're kind of just like barging into a room with a shotgun and hoping you hit something. Guess what's going to happen? You're more than likely, all of those little pellets are going to hit the people's pocketbooks before you actually hit your target. That's what the problem is, because they are not leading based on, these people want to say, we're science and biology and all this stuff. But then when it comes to doing the policies and implementing the policies that they want to implement, all of that goes out the window. They don't consider any of it. That's exactly why we don't have our impact study for net zero here in Massachusetts. And as a matter of fact, I got a message from somebody after I made the video yesterday. I guess in New Jersey, they did the same. New Jersey's playbook was formulate a study, come up with the impact study, and then not release it to the public. They did one, and it ended up being like $1.3 or $1.2 trillion or something like that. And then they did another one to try to combat the report that they originally had, and they didn't release it to the public. So what do you think is actually going on here? I think it's fine for people to have these grand ideas and grand visions. I think that, for some people, in some extents, you need that, okay, to push that needle forward. But you can't use other people's money unwillingly to get there. That's the problem with all this, and this is the exact problem that we're going to continue to see in blue states. Furthermore, Maura Healey claims that she wants to she's running on affordability. She has more work to do. She has a lot more work to do. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Massachusetts would have been better if we had nobody in there, because look at it this way. If the starting point was here when she got in office, now it's down here. So her run in office has had a negative impact inside of Massachusetts between the amount of people that have left and between the amount of businesses that have left as well, on top of everything getting exponentially more expensive. Not only more expensive in the terms of housing, because there's lack of inventory, but even the new products that are coming on the market due to the standards for electrifying everything and making sure everything is buttoned up tight to meet environmental or these like green standards. Guess what happens? The materials that you're using to put into these projects are only going to be more expensive. And the fact remains, she refuses. I hope to God that she debates whomever is going to be her challenger very, very soon. Because if it was me, I would hammer her on the points that she does not talk about. She talks about making Massachusetts more affordable by essentially, not even talking about what she has done to the state up until this point, which is make it less affordable. It's so they create this environment where they made the problem and they run on solutions to the problems that they made. Do you see what I'm saying? That's realistically what is happening inside of Massachusetts. That's why I think that a lot of these blue states, now I don't know a lot about other places, in Illinois or New York, for example. I don't know how deep blue they are, meaning I don't know what the representation is on both sides of the aisle. So I can't necessarily speak about these other states, but I'm willing to bet it probably looks very similar to how Massachusetts looks, where you have a ton of people that are stuck in the middle. right? You have 60 plus 65% of the population that are enrolled as an independent voter, right? Because they probably don't know which way to go. And then what happens is all these people in the State House inside of Boston are all sitting around a table, patting each other on the back, not critically thinking, only thinking critically within the brackets of their own party, but not getting any pushback on the other side on whether something may or may not be a good idea. You see what I'm saying? So like that's where I think a lot of these states need more of a balance, right? They need to be more balanced and they need to think these things through, because who gets left in the wreckage? It's us. That's it for today's video, guys. I hope you have a great weekend. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.